Hi, everyone, and welcome to Conversations, a Women's Congress for Future Generations project. Today we're speaking to Christine Nobiss. Christine Nobiss is Plains Cree-Saulteaux of the George Gordon First Nation in Saskatchewan, Canada, and grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Not only is she a decolonizer with Seeding Sovereignty, but she's the founder of Indigenous Iowa and Little Creek Camp. Indigenous and environmental justice has always been a passion for Christine. Her first job at the age of 19 was working for the New Brunswick Aboriginal Peoples Council. She is a speaker, writer, artist, organizer, and movement mentor in Iowa and across the nation, and she is focused on dismantling colonial-imperialist institutions and replacing them with Indigenous practices created in synchronicity with this land. Christine graduated from the University of Iowa with a master's degree in religious studies with a focus on Native American religion and culture, and a graduate minor in American Indian Native Studies. She fights for a better future for her two small children. For Seeding Sovereignty, Christine directs the Iowa Land Decolonization Project, the SHIFT Project, and is a prolific writer of in-depth articles, blog posts, and zines of current events. Recently, Christine created the Riverland Native Builder Project, which is a joint effort between Indigenous Iowa and Seeding Sovereignty. For 2019, Christine is co-organizing the first ever Iowa Water Festival in Des Moines, curating Indigenous at SOCAP 19 in San Francisco, speaking at Kent State University, presenting a paper at the 40th American Indian Workshop, and much more. She is particularly honored to attend, as a delegate, the 18th session of the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues to be held in New York City this year. In Iowa and beyond, she works hard to build unity with other organizations like the Indian Problem, Women's Indigenous Media, Bold Iowa, the Possibility Alliance, Midwest Telegraph, 100 Grannies, and many more. Unity, she believes, is key to overcoming the heteropatriarchy and to combating climate change in the next 12 years. Hi, Christine. How are you?
I am good. I just woke up thinking about how this is the hottest summer on record.
Yeah, is it? You're in Iowa, correct?
Yeah, not just in Iowa, but I think like all over the world.
Yes, but Carolyn was saying how you guys are just really having some extreme heat right now.
Yes, yeah, we are. We had some very extreme rain for quite some time, so farmers couldn't get their crops planted, and then now we're having this extreme heat. So it just can't seem to win lately with climate change.
Yeah, no, I am in Maryland, so we're having the same thing. Last year, we actually got more rain than Seattle, which is ridiculous. But we've had some extreme heat and then storms too, because it's been so hot. But anyway, I thank you so much for making time with us this morning to have a conversation. We're really excited to have you on. Carolyn cannot speak highly enough about you. So we're just really excited to share you with the rest of the SEN and Women's Congress followers.
I feel the same way about her.
Good. So tell us about your work right now with Seeding Sovereignty. Tell us a little bit about the organization and some of your projects that are going on, like SHIFT.
Seeding Sovereignty is an Indigenous women's-led nonprofit organization that doesn't really have a home necessarily. I mean, we are technically based out of New York City, well, Brooklyn actually, but that's where Janet lives, who founded Seeding Sovereignty. But I'm in Iowa and Erin's in New Mexico, and then we have interns elsewhere and people that work with us in different projects all over, the country and in Canada. And in fact, we have somebody coming on board very soon, I hope, to work on a project that is in Canada, in the tar sands. So that's a project that we're ramping up right now, concerning solar power. Mm-hmm. And what I do with Seeding Sovereignty is decolonize. I guess my title on my business card says Decolonizer.
That's excellent.
Yeah. And I chose that title simply because, well, Janet was asking me, again, our executive director, was asking me for a title for a long time, just something to put on the business card. And I kept not wanting to do that because I do so much of everything in what you would consider like organizing work that it was hard because, I write about a lot of different issues and I do it in many different ways. I don't just write, I speak and I do art and I organize, events and protests and all sorts of stuff. I even lobby. So finally, I just, I thought about it and I just said, well, I guess what I really try to do is decolonize the world. So I just called myself Decolonizer. And I have two main focuses right now. One is Shift, which is a program that I kind of revamped that we were working on with some youth, and it stands for Seeding the Hill with Indigenous Free Thinkers. And I'm trying to get the Indigenous perspective in this race going because, as you know, that rarely happens. I've been bird dogging candidates. I've talked to about 8 of them so far. And then I have an interview with Castro coming up on the 14th, and then with Bernie on the 21st, I guess. And basically, I just asked them, like, why don't you hear the word Indigenous in any of these national platforms? And why, what do you think about the Green New Deal? And why is there not more language pertaining to Indigenous sovereignty? I can't imagine moving forward on something like this with, like, such a lofty idea, with such lofty ideals, and not talk about Native sovereignty, as all of these issues like absolutely pertain to us and our sovereignty. Mm-hmm. And the other project I'm working on, it's sort of been, it's just ongoing. It will be ongoing. Is I guess you would call it. Well, I'm still looking for a good title, but right now I call it the Land Decolonization Project, and it focuses mainly on Iowa, but I use the work in Iowa to also take a look at what's going on all over Turtle Island and the world, even to Indigenous communities, in particular when it comes to big ag or agribusiness, because I see that actually as a far more detrimental contributor to environmental crises for sure, crises for sure, and then also it is a massive contributor to climate change. And Iowa is big ag sacrifice zone. It's the most biologically colonized state in the country because of it. And we have a lot of issues here. I could go on and on and on, but that's basically why I feel really passionate about this land decolonization project.
Yeah. So you also were heavily involved with the Dakota Access Pipeline and trying to work to prevent that from being built. How did that experience at Standing Rock and with the Dakota Access Pipeline, how did that influence your work?
It influenced it a lot because it opened up a lot of doorways and a lot of it basically, what it did was a lot of people had no idea what was going on with Indigenous people before Standing Rock. Or they did and they just didn't care, or whatever, what have you. I'm talking about like settler descendants and mainstream, society. And I think that changed some people's minds about things. It's a confluence of, climate change, environmental issues, and environmental injustice, and Indigenous people rising up to say what we need to say, because we have been fighting these things for a very long time. As you know, since probably, well, since invaders stepped foot on this shore, we've been giving warnings and telling people that you can't, treat the earth this way. And so Standing Rock created a lot of visibility for the work that I have been doing for over 20 years. And that was really cool, because I had been loosely organizing this, just kind of these meetings every once in a while with, Indigenous people that would come in and around the state to Iowa City, just to meet and talk about, issues. I've been doing that for a few years, and I kept saying I need to start this, this organization that, is for Indigenous people in Iowa, because, it's like 90% white here, and then there's the Meskwaki Nation, but they're like a couple, or like an hour away from here, and they're doing their own thing, and they're doing amazing things. But there's a lot of us in Iowa that don't have, we're not Meskwaki. And 70% of Natives now live off the reservation. So I felt a great need to start something for Natives that aren't living on the reservation, because we need those ties still, because it can be quite lonely. And so I guess what Standing Rock allowed me to do was just to really put my thoughts into action. And Indigenous Iowa was founded through my work at Standing Rock, and I was able to get a lot of support from people. It was amazing, actually. I never knew that would ever. I never thought that would ever happen. I've been doing this work for a long time. Like, my first job was at the New Brunswick Aboriginal Peoples Council in New Brunswick, where I was fighting for fishery rights. But I never thought that people would be they would wake up to that extent. And there's just been, some great support from local people all over the state for Indigenous Iowa. And and then I started Little Creek Camp, which was a continuation of the fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline. After the camps were closed in February 2016 up in Standing Rock, and continued the fight here in Iowa for another 6 months. So that's how Standing Rock affected my work.
Yeah, and you, through all of the work that you're doing, it clearly requires you to work with many different groups and different coalitions. And whenever Carolyn Raffensperger, our executive director at SEN, talks about you, she consistently brings up the fact that you move with so much grace in the world, and you're so skilled at working with all of these different groups. But that's a difficult skill to learn. I think that working in coalitions can be incredible, but it can also be very difficult. In a lot of the work that you're doing, tensions can be very high. Can you tell us a little bit about how you learned to do that so well?
I don't think it's something learned for me. I really don't. I just
more of a gift, maybe.
I don't know if you call it a gift. I don't even know if it's a gift so much. I just see people as people, and I do sometimes have trouble, working with certain, white-led organizations because of the extractive nature of what they do. But I have no problem having a diplomatic conversation with them and letting them know, like, why it is that I'm not happy with what they're doing. And then I just see everything as an opportunity to learn and to build bridges rather than burn them, because, change is not easy. Real change is not easy. I mean, ideally, the kind of change we'd be having right now was a revolution. That's the kind of change we'd be having, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. because change won't happen until people are extremely uncomfortable and hurting and worried and dying, to be honest. And that's just not happening in the United States right now. Not with like, you know, people are dying at the borders. Indigenous women, we are dying at, you know, very high rates. It's a crisis. Not only do we have the highest missing and murdered rates in the country, we have the highest suicide rate, which is like it blew up in the past few years to like 139%. Past where it used to be, whereas, you know, white population is like 33%. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that we have our issues, and I can be angry sometimes, but like it's not going to get anywhere if I'm angry at people and walk away, you know. And I just truly believe that healing comes both with Indigenous people of color, like, you know, the Black population, all populations that have been affected by oppression and genocide and, you know, racism and misogyny. It comes with us healing, of course, but that comes with reparations and atonement from, you know, the population that has benefited off of all of this death and mayhem, I guess you could say. But then also that settler descendant population, at the same time, not only do they have to, you know, to atone and to acknowledge and to provide reparations, they also need to heal from like the notions of white supremacy that have been ingrained in them, and and then also the white guilt. And so that's why, like, I'm always interested in just having conversations with people. I would have a conversation with like the most backwards, like white supremacists in the country if I was given the opportunity, and I would do my best to keep my temper.
Yeah, that's not something that a lot of us could say. That is, it's maybe you don't see it as a skill, but it is just something that you do well, and that's just something that is so great about you and your work, because you clearly put a lot of thought into this and everything that you do, which is incredible. And one of the projects, and you sort of mentioned it, is working in the intersection of pipelines and missing and murdered Indigenous women. So one, that's a situation where you've had to work with a bunch of different coalitions and groups and have had to do that well. But can you tell us a little bit about the current work in that sphere?
Yeah. I basically write a lot because I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough articles and scholarly papers and even books out there covering the subject in particular. You know what I mean? And so I just wrote an article. I wrote a few articles in the past year. One of them, of course, was specifically on this issue. And then one was on VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, which I feel needs like a lot more attention because Trump is trying to cut that out right now. And then I just wrote an article on the abortion ban, which actually does relate to this as well, or the abortion bans, I guess I should say. And I speak a lot with grassroots people, like on the ground, that are doing this work like firsthand. You know, like there's some people I know that like just go out and search for people. I've been on a search And it's really weird. It's really weird to be like thinking to yourself, I'm looking for, a dead body. And like, and you're like, and then you're like, oh, well, I really want to find this person, but but you're looking for a dead body actually. And then you're like, wow, what if I'm the person that finds that? Like, do you want to be the person that finds that?
Right.
Like it's a real, it really twists your mind around it. And so, I'm really close with Matthew Lombear, who lost his sister Olivia, and I've talked with him for hours about like what it is that they went through searching for her, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking. And the powers that be don't have, are they either, it's a combination of racism and like lack of resources to get the job done on reservations in particular. And so I just try to bring attention to all these issues. I'm more interested, I guess, in talking about like why this is happening, so that we can find the source of the problem and then like cut it off right there.
Yeah, and so I know that there was just a pipeline that was approved by Trudeau in Canada that you guys have been speaking out against as the Ceding Sovereignty group. Has there been any discussion of man camps and just the missing and murdered Indigenous women movement?
I forgot you mentioned pipelines. Yes, so some of the work I've done, okay, so you want me to respond to the pipelines and the increase of Indigenous violence in community?
Absolutely. I mean, any information that you can give, us and everyone listening, I think you have incredible insight and knowledge of this sphere. So yes, please.
So hold on here. I'm going to bring something up.
Sure.
So what's happening with these man camps, and there is that they if they're near any Indigenous communities, there is most often an increase in violence in these areas, and this is nothing new to what we've been experiencing. The relentless colonization of our territories, like obviously has a direct correlation to an increase in, the rates of violence to our people. That's just like, that just goes like hand in hand, of course. And so there are studies now that have come out finally that have proven this, that there is a correlation. There's one study in Canada that examined the potential impacts associated with the Mount Milligan mine in British Columbia on the Nakasley and the Tlasden First Nations. It was nearby there, and they found that the local community experienced a 48% increase in assaults with a weapon, a 50% increase in aggravated assaults, and a 38% increase in sexual assaults, and a 37% increase in missing persons reports. I mean, that's like that. Those are not small numbers. And so there's also a report that recently came out in 2017 on the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation in North Dakota, which of course is located in the middle of Bakken oil fields. Mm-hmm. And there has been a 70% increase of federal case filings since the boom, Right. The report states that since the boom, Native American communities have reported increased rates of human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking and missing and murdered Indigenous women in their communities. And so I wrote an intervention on this actually when I was at the UN as a representative of Seeding Sovereignty. I was at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous issues, and I was lucky enough to write an intervention while I was there, and present it on this particular issue. And you can actually see that intervention on our Facebook page. If you scroll back to our videos in April, or actually May, it was on May 1st, I believe. Then you can see that, and it's the written version is also on our blog, on our Seeding Sovereignty page. And yes, there absolutely is a correlation between increased violence in Indigenous communities and the establishment of man camps. And the stories I don't want to tell right now because sometimes they just create too much pain for me. But the stories of, you know, what they're doing to even like children, like 3-year-old girls, for instance, is really, really horrid and hard to hear.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of working with people, I work with all sorts of people. I was recently at a meeting that Carolyn had actually put on in Minneapolis, and I was really honored to be invited, where we spent the whole day talking about this. And, you know, there was just experts from all sorts of different areas, just talking about this issue and, you know, seeing what it is we can do to make a difference.
Yeah, thank you for all of the background too, and I do understand that it is painful to talk about, and just something that is very real and relevant and happening all over the place today. So in kind of understanding that your work takes a lot of, you know, mental and emotional energy from you all of the time, of course, because of just the nature of the work that you're doing. You kind of mentioned that you work a lot with art. So does the role that art plays in your thinking and work, do you find that this helps you? Is this a technique? How does that kind of relate to each other?
Art, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I just cut out a little bit.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, oh boy. Yeah, art is extremely important in presenting a message to people about, you know, what it is we are doing, because it's vibrant, and it can be it can really affect you, and it can say a message sometimes much more clearly than just words. And Indigenous people, I don't know what it is, but we have a real talent for art, and I just we have amazing artists in our community, and it's just something I'm really proud of. And I work with some resistance artists. I have worked with some resistance artists on different projects. And it's a really empowering feeling to be able to, you know, not just write or speak the message, but to put that message into like a form that's going to like really show what's going on. I guess recently, one of the last art builds I helped organize was in Des Moines, and we were protesting the Wells Fargo shareholder meeting. Mm-hmm. And I made sure that I think it was, I don't know, it was like either Sierra Club. I think it was Sierra Club. I made sure that they were able to bring up one of my favorite artists. His name is Remy, and he and I managed an art build where we put together pieces of art portraying the issues that Wells Fargo has created in our communities. And I just remember one of them is a huge, long banner. It's like 20 feet, like long, and it says "Stop banking on stolen land," and it has the Wells Fargo logo with the carriage, running with the horses, and it's being shot with arrows.
Yeah, it's a very powerful piece for sure.
Yeah. And I love it. And then there's another piece we made, another huge banner we made for that march, which says Wells Fargo's murders communities, and that goes right to the heart of the man camp, because if they're funding or if they're in bed with oil companies, then they are funding man camps, which is essentially murdering our communities. And it had handprints all over it, and it was very visceral. And I think that's what art is. It can be visceral and provide that experience that we need sometimes in order to kind of get the picture home, get the idea home to people.
Yeah, that connection between feeling and seeing, and making sure that people are experiencing on more of a physical level the words that you're putting in front of them.
Yeah, and I think about Feeding Sovereignty and Jackie Fond, who works with us from time to time, and her amazing art, and how that's captured people's attention quite a lot with the work we do. She actually created a piece for me for my work here in Iowa, fighting big ag, not just like, farmers, like, corporate farmers, but CAFOs, concentrated animal feed operations. And so, yeah, it's a really powerful piece that gets quite a lot of attention.
Yeah, she's incredible. I do have a poster of an image that she created on the missing and murdered Indigenous women's movement.
Oh, I think I gave you that.
Yes,
I?
you did. You did. It's great. I have a couple posters of that and stickers. It's a very powerful, haunting, but equally just beautiful and important image that, I mean, it's inspiring and also kind of grounding at the same time. Her work is great.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, one of the questions that I actually was given to ask you, just because of its importance, is so in your bio and introduction, we did talk about the fact that you are Cree, Plains Cree, and if there's one piece of Cree worldview and wisdom that you would want us to understand deep in our bones, what would it be?
I don't know why, but the first thing that popped in my head was, we had more than two genders.
No, absolutely. And I think, we're just coming out of June, and this is, I think, the first year that I have seen like two spirits be represented in Pride. And I don't know that it's probably been touched on before and been more visible in the public, but it was just the first year that I noticed two spirits being mentioned and acknowledged in Pride festivals and parades across the country.
Yeah, I mean, they've been around for a bit now, but yeah, it's becoming more and more prominent for sure, and that's fantastic. Yep. Yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind for some reason. Depending on, like, the I guess you would call it the sorry, I'm not at a loss for words at the moment, but the way people view it varies, but it generally, like, with Cree people, from what I've been told from the people that, like, from my people, is there was 5 genders. But that varies, via, like, it could vary from, because the Crees, we take up, there's a lot of Crees, I mean, there's like Moose Cree, Rocky Cree, Swampy Cree, Plains Cree, and then there's, you know, Cree that are all the way out in Quebec. And so, like, but yeah, generally there was more than just this two gender binary thing going on. The other thing that always comes to mind right away for me is just the way I was brought up. It's a very different understanding of how important it is to listen to what your elders are saying and how you treat them. That's huge to me. That's huge, actually. That really dictates a lot of the way I act in this world. I have mad respect for people that have been doing, you know, been in this world for a long time and that have, like, you know, wisdom and a way of being that needs to be emulated. So that's another thing that really dictates how I work. And I think it's one of the reasons why I get along with a lot of people, like you said, because there are a lot of people I work with that are, you know, older than me and that have a lot of time invested in their fields of work. And so I respect that. And I try to, like, I never want to, like, act like I know more than anybody else. I really want to learn. And yeah, that's important to me.
Yeah. So in, I guess, that same vein, what advice do you have for others who are looking to not only pursue this similar work that you are doing, but people who are looking to be effective allies in this work?
That's such a hard question.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a loaded question, but I think.
So you're
yeah.
talking. Okay, so you're speaking particularly about,
like, just your work as a decolonizer, and, you know.
Yeah, but you're speaking about Settler Descendant Society, right? Like allies, right? That's
yes.
Okay. There's do you know, often when people ask me that, my mind goes right away to Clee Benally's zine, which is called Accomplices Not Allies, which I've handed out hundreds of times to people. I've printed out so many of those, and I just think it's a really helpful piece. Basically, it talks about the different ways that, like, white-led organizations and or just white people in general have meddled with the stuff we're doing. And so, like, it talks about parachuting in and gatekeeping and, you know, like, trying to be one of us, which is really strange. And I think that that's a great resource right there. It's online, so, you know, it can be looked up, and it's a really short read.
Yeah, I'll link it to this. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I tell people, so I regularly seem to get asked by white like churches and, like, Mennonite groups and what have you, to go speak and talk about, like, say, the doctrine of discovery and or, like, how it, you know, just, like, let them know, like, what they can do to help and, like, what they can do to decolonize themselves. And that's always really interesting, because what I always find myself saying at the very end is, like, the most Christian thing a Christian person can do is to give up Christianity.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure that's a hard pill to swallow in that situation.
Yeah, I think it's time for Christianity to go. You know, religions come and go in this world. Ideologies come and go. Philosophies come and go. And in my opinion, Christianity should just be on its way out now. I really don't think Jesus would want his name being used this way. His name was used to kill, you know, millions, if not, you know, 1 billion people around the world, you know, concerning the, you know, the for the sake of land. The process of colonization is to, you know, to take land, and during and in that process mitigate the local population either through annihilation, assimilation, or slavery. And so, like, all of this has been done. Like, all of this has been done because of this superiority complex created by Christianity, and this really silly, like crazy idea of the doctrine of discovery, or manifest destiny, or the white man's burden, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
That white people had this calling to go out into the world, and gentrify the land, and Christianize the savages, so that they would be saved. I mean, like, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
And that's still happening, regardless of what these people say, like, regardless of, like, what the Mennonites say when they say, well, we don't proselytize, we just, when we go on our missions to Africa, we're just there to help. I'm like, no, you're just perpetuating the same bullshit that you guys have been doing for hundreds of years. You're just going there, and you may not be, killing them or threatening violence unless they decide to become a Christian, but you're giving them things and you're doing things with them during a time of crisis, where then it creates this trauma bond with you, and then they essentially, they become a Christian. Right now in Africa, the Mennonite religion is increasing, like, exponentially. And, like, why is that? Because more and more Africans are dropping their own cultural and traditional beliefs and attitudes and converting, and that's really scary to me. So, like, basically what I tell them is, like, can you just not come into our communities? Can you just, like, work on your own issues? Because you have a hell of a lot of issues in your own communities. Like, you guys got to figure out what's going on in your suburbs with the isolation and the nuclear families. You guys got to go to the places of power, like Wall Street, and where, all of these, like, oil companies' headquarters are. And you need to be, like, focusing on that. Those are your brothers and sisters that run that. You guys need to be going into white supremacist communities and figuring out what's going on there, because those are your brothers and sisters. See, I do this work because I believe, and I love my relatives, my Indigenous relatives, and white people, they need to start loving their relatives. And yeah, a lot of their relatives really suck, because, like, let's look at our administration right now, like who's running the U.S. government right now. That's horrible. But I really believe that, like, if the white population of this country started to view themselves, like, as relatives, then they would be more interested, perhaps, in building bridges and helping make change, rather than continuously just, like, calling each other out and throwing each other under the bus, and being divisive. It's one of the reasons right now that, like, I'm really feeling worried about the Democratic Party and their ability to take down Trump, because I don't really see people, like, working together. I just see people, like, just like crab bucket syndrome, like, trying to see who's going to come out on top, when really they should be working together in a much, much more massive way, because I'm scared, to be honest, with what's going on.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I will say that I'm scared too. And I guess my question now is, and you can of course say no or whatever, but do you think that there is any way to work together responsibly? I feel like, so I think that when people hear this, people who particularly are Christians and volunteer with their churches. I happen to know there's a church group who sends, I don't know how many people they send, but they send a group of young people out in the summers to actually go work at Standing Rock and for like their youth summer camps there, which of course, you know, as someone who is not new to this work, a lot of red flags pop up for me there, just because as a white person, I wonder, like, is there a way right now that we can work together in like we can work to support, you know, things like preventing missing and murdered Indigenous women? Like, is there a way we can work and support that responsibly, and not kind of come in with this white person's guilt and the savior complex? And I don't know if my question makes sense. It's more of like this feeling of, I can see where people will want to help, like other people who are scared, who are seeing our time kind of running out, not only in this election cycle, but just things are going in a terrible direction very quickly. And so this process of kind of rebuilding and seeing each other as relatives, you know what I mean? Like, that's going to take time. And I think that with issues that are so big and so critical and people are suffering, people want to help directly. Does that make sense? Like, I'm just wondering, like, if you think there's a way to do that or not.
The best, like what I tell people all the time is the best way to help an Indigenous community or an Indigenous org or, you know, Indigenous grassroots like organizers, or, you know, any other like you know, like any other community, like POC community working on issues, is to basically just give us the resources. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And stop putting like all sorts of you know, there's always like some caveat to, like, you know, when we do get resources, to what it has to be used for.
Right.
Like, they know better. You know, like the Lush Foundation is one of those. I love the Lush Foundation. They've done amazing work, but it's really hard to get a grant from them because it has to be very specific in what it is you're doing. You know, like, I say this over and over again because I help to put on Indigenous at SOCAP. This is my second year doing it, and SOCAP stands for Social Capitalist Conference. It happens every year in October. And I basically said while I was there, like, the best thing you people can do is to just give us the resources we need, because Indigenous women are the walking embodiment of a social impact strategy. And we've managed to make it through 500 years of colonization and genocide while still raising our children and maintaining our culture and traditions. Not saying our men haven't. I'm just specifically talking about Indigenous women because, you know, we are the caregivers. And currently, right now, in this particular society that we're living in, there are a lot of single moms and a lot of Indigenous women taking on, you know, other children, and men that just aren't showing up, you know. And so we are extremely strong, resilient, and tenacious people, and we know what's going on firsthand on the ground. And like, though we are the people that need that funding, you know, $60 billion of foundation funding each year goes to white people, goes to white-led organizations, 95% white-led, and then 70 to 80% of those organizations and or people are men. And so, like, I really want to change that. Like, that's the one thing I need. If that's the one thing that I can say to people that want to help, is give us resources. We have the ability to deal with this situation ourselves.
Yes.
Because they all have a lot of resources. We all know that. We all know that there's a massive gap between the, you know, even the middle upper class and like, you know, the middle lower class and the poor.
Right.
And so I know that there are a lot of people out there with like a lot of resources, and it's going to the same old, and like I just want that to change. I think that, you know, I mean, I think about like what Noam Chomsky has said and David Suzuki and the Drawdown team. They've said that Indigenous people can help combat climate change. Indigenous people's traditional ecological knowledge can help save the world.
Absolutely.
We just need to be heard, but we're not. We're still not being heard to the extent that we need to be heard. We're still not, you know, at the table at some of the most important things that are going on in the United States. Like I just came from Columbia University's, what is it called? IFA, like International Energy Financing Summit or something, conference. It happens every year in New York City. And I was one of two Indigenous people there. One Native person actually spoke. She's Danae, and she spoke about the NGS plant, coal plant on their nation, and how that needs to be retired and they need to move forward with renewable energies. But that's it. And I was in meetings where it was just like me and, you know, 50, you know, let's just say settler descendants, and then maybe one or two other people of color. And like it blew my mind that these people are talking about extraction, and they're talking about, like, you know, how it's financed, and they're talking about how we need to change that, and they're talking about all of these issues. But guess what? A lot of those issues, a lot of these extraction industries covet and you know, are predatory on Indigenous territories. You know, a massive amount of coal deposits, oil deposits, uranium deposits still lie on Indigenous territories. And if you think Trump isn't going to come for that, well, you know, he's going to. And let's just be honest about the fact that all of Turtle Island is stolen land. So technically, all of it really is Indigenous land. Therefore, Indigenous people need to be heard and they need to be elevated. And I think about the Green New Deal, and you know, we need to be in there. Like there needs to be a freaking like a coalition, a table of like Indigenous peoples, of, you know, of the most cutting edge, you know, and forward thinking people at that table talking about the Green New Deal and giving input and how that should move forward. We should be leading this issue. But of course, again, we're not, and that's an issue for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I don't want to take up too much of your time today, and I mean, honestly, I think that everything that you shared is just incredibly important. You know, I think right now we're in a time where it is just too late to talk to people in ways that just make them, you know, feel good, and instead be very real. And that's something that I really appreciate about you and your work, is you still move with such grace in the world, but yet you don't sacrifice any of your passion and your just realness for that. So thank you so much for speaking with us today. For everyone listening, I will be including the links to Seeding Sovereignty and their work, and Christine's work with the UN to this post so that you can easily access it. Please continue to follow Christine and her work with Seeding Sovereignty. And, you know, hopefully, Christine, you will come back and talk to us again and keep us updated on your work.
Yeah, I will for sure. Maybe the next time we talk, I'll be able to say that I got like that $60 billion foundation funding to go towards people of color.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic. And I look forward to that greatly.
Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you.